Hello and welcome. In this video, we'll have a look at mountains um, and ancient sites, and distances between mountains and distances from mountains to ancient sites. And there is a ratio that orders all of these distances. There aren't too many to show you here, but that ratio is that between exactly the kilometer and the mile. The kilometer here and the mile. So there is an order here to the surface topography of Earth itself, the distances between mountains, ordered by the kilometer and the mile, and then distances from mountains to ancient sites, the most famous one. And the order there is also that between the kilometer and the mile to those distances. So there are three mountains involved here, only three, and only three ancient sites also. But I start here by showing you that, and I think I've shown this in a separate video that's up already, about mountains in Asia ordered by the kilometer-mile ratio. But we'll start with this distance. From Mauna Kea here. Here we have Mauna Kea, the highest mountain in all of the Pacific Ocean. And it has two distances. One is to the north to exactly Mount Logan, the second highest mountain in North America. Think of this distance as 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer. And then we have the second distance from Mauna Kea to the second highest mountain again on this continent, Oceania, and that's Punsak Mandala here on Papua New Guinea. This distance is 1 mile, the imperial mile, while the first then is as 1 kilometer. And this is very, very near exact. So 1 kilometer here and 1 mile here. That's the ratio between those two distances. So that's our starting point. Mauna Kea unites these two, the second highest mountains on respective continent, precisely with that ratio between the kilometer and the mile. 1 kilometer and 1 mile. Now, if we measure from Mount Logan, we come to the first ancient site in Mexico, and that's the famous Teotihuacan, the Mexican pyramids with the sun and the moon pyramid. The distance from Mount Logan to Teotihuacan is exactly as 2 kilometers compared to this second distance, which is from Punsak Mandala here again, that has a distance to exactly Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the Angkor Wat, world famous Angkor Wat temples. This distance, Punsak Mandala to Angkor Wat, is as 1 mile compared to the previous one, which was as exactly 2 kilometers. And now we go back to the distance, and now we will reach the Giza plateau and the pyramids in Egypt. We take this distance from Punsak Mandala to Mauna Kea, that previously was as 1 mile compared to this one. Now we look at this distance, Mandala to Kea, as 1 kilometer, exactly 1 kilometer here. Then the distance from Punsak Mandala all the way to Giza, the Giza plateau in Egypt, is as 1 mile. 1 mile. Again, 1 mile here and 1 kilometer here. Well, now I've spoken about these and introduced them and the sites and the distances. You probably don't believe me, I assume. So here comes a little longer and cumbersome part where I do the work of measuring this and showing you the evidence. So let's start first with Mauna Kea to Mount Logan and Punsak Mandala. And then kilometers here from Kea to Logan. And here we have then the very peak of Mauna Kea, where there is an observatory here. And we measure from there to Mount Logan, the second highest in North America. And here we find the distance. If you look in the little measure tool here, we find the distance of just around 4,682 kilometers. 4682 in kilometers. Now let's shift to miles and measure from Mauna Kea to Punsak Mandala. So let's fly there instead. And the line is still attached then at the peak of Mauna Kea. So here we have the peak of Punsak Mandala, the second highest mountain in Oceania. And here, if you look in the measure tool here, in the middle row, you see just under 4,682 miles, the numbers we had in kilometers previously. So there we have it, that the ratio is very, very near exactly 1 kilometer and 1 mile in these two distances. Let's now go up to Mount Logan and measure from Mount Logan to Teotihuacan in kilometers, and then we'll compare that with the distance between Punsak Mandala and Angkor Wat. So in kilometers here from Mount Logan, its peak is right there, and we fly down to Teotihuacan and the Mexican pyramids. And just when we reach them here in the north, here is the Moon Pyramid, and here we have the Sun Pyramid and so on. And just when we reach the Moon Pyramid here, we have a distance in the middle row here, the ground length in the measure tool of 5,588 kilometers and a little bit more. If we divide 5,588 in half, you get 2,794, 2,794. So, and that's what we'll find in miles between Punsak Mandala and Angkor Wat. So let's measure that and see. Here is then the peak of Punsak Mandala, and let's fly to Angkor Wat. So here we are at Angkor Wat, the island, central island here, and the temple in the center of it. And here, if you can look in the top row here in the measure tool, that's the map length. Then we have just around 2,794 miles here. Half the numbers we had in kilometers between Mount Logan and Teotihuacan. So the ratio between those two distances then is as 2 kilometers to 1 mile. So now we come to the final correlation that will bring in the Giza Plateau here. And again is the ratio between the kilometer and the mile we'll be looking at. This time we're going back to the distance between Mauna Kea and Punsak Mandala, this one. But now we'll measure from Punsak Mandala to Mauna Kea in kilometers. And we'll connect that distance with the distance from Punsak Mandala to Giza. And the ratio will be as 1 kilometer to 1 mile. Let's first measure from Punsak Mandala to Mauna Kea again, but this time in kilometers. So here we are at the peak of Mauna Kea, and if you look in the measure tool here again, we have two distances here, map length and ground length, and they differ somewhat by about 5 kilometers. If you take the average value of these two numbers that we have here, 75229.6 and 7534.8 thereabouts, then we get 7,532.2 7,532.2 kilometers here between Punsak Mandala and Mauna Kea. And that is what we'll find in miles from Punsak Mandala to Giza. So let's measure that in miles now. And here we have again the peak of Punsak Mandala and off to Giza. And it is the mile distance here that we're looking at. And here we come to the Giza Plateau here. You can see the pyramids here. And where we reach now is down here at the Sphinx and the Valley Temple right here. Now again, we have two values here, the map length and the ground length. And you can see that they differ somewhat by about 3 miles. And if we take the average of these two distances, we get 7,532.2 miles. 7,530.8 and 7,533.6 is what we have here. And the average of these two. is 7,532.2 miles. Exactly the same numbers we had between Punsak Mandala and Mauna Kea on average again. So there we had it that Punsak Mandala to Giza is as 1 mile, and Punsak Mandala to Mauna Kea is as 1 kilometer. So that's what I wanted to show in this video, this correlation between the very highest mountains in and around the Pacific Ocean. Number 1 here in the Pacific, and number 2 in North America, and number 2 in Oceania, and 1 kilometer and 1 mile here. And then the correlations between these mountains and Logan and Teotihuacan, and Punsak Mandala and Mauna Kea. Punsak Mandala and Angkor Wat, 2 kilometers and 1 mile. And then finally, Punsak Mandala to Mauna Kea as 1 kilometer, while Punsak Mandala to Giza is 1 mile here. So that's what I wanted to show in this video, this correlation between the highest mountains and these ancient sites. If you watched this far, thank you very much for watching.